So this is the one in which I chat with leftist content creator STV Philly about his YouTube channel, which is dedicated to raising awareness about urban violence, his personal history and upbringing, which prompted him to make that channel in the first place, as well as his thoughts about the current state of online political commentary on YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Check out his channel ASAP, and in the meantime, please hit that like and subscribe, and enjoy the chat. All right, so
Gotcha.
Philly, STV, Philly. Which would you
Yes.
prefer?
So, well, so the STV just stands for Stop the Violence. It's nothing, no crazy acronym, nothing crazy. So Philly's fine. Yeah.
So I'm gonna go out on a limb here, and you tell me if I'm wrong, and if you don't want to talk about it. But is Philly your home state or where you're located?
Yes, I am. I live in South Philadelphia. I've lived in Philly my whole life, different parts of the city, but yes, I'm based and everything is coming from a Philly perspective, on that. Yep.
Perfect. So I was actually born in northeastern Pennsylvania myself, right along the Susquehanna River, in a small podunk town, like 200 people, no red lights, 5 bars.
Oh,
Yeah,
well, that's a lot of Pennsylvania actually, like between Philly and
yeah.
Pittsburgh,
Uh-huh. You know, it's
right?
funny. It's funny though, like because I spent most of my life in the South, and I've spent most of my life in Kentucky, and now I'm in a different red state. I moved like 2 months ago to a bigger city on the East Coast, and um, what's funny is people who have never been to Pennsylvania just assume because it's above the Mason-Dixon line that we're just a bunch of snooty Yankees, and I'm like, dude, we've got plenty of rednecks. We probably have more rednecks than any single, you know, southern state.
Yeah, Philly and Ohio, or excuse me, Pennsylvania and Ohio are notorious for that. Like, if you're not in a major city, you are, yeah, it's pretty much like you said, like, no, like small towns, no red lights, not much going on.
A lot of
Yeah,
meth,
yeah,
a lot of drugs,
yeah,
like
absolutely.
it's got a very it's funny. So like when people for the longest time, like it took forever for me to get onto the Breaking Bad kick. And it was funny because when people were like, "Do you not watch Breaking Bad?" I'm like, "Dude, my family's living that life in rural Pennsylvania, so I got like a
Right.
firsthand scene to it." Um, so as far as your background, other than you being in Philadelphia and stop the violence, so was there like a particular like political event or violent event that got you to make this channel? Like what's the genesis of your online persona?
That's a great question. So for the last 4 years, first of all, let me answer your first question and give you a little background on myself. Like I said, I was born and raised in Philadelphia. I've moved around a lot as a child, due to financial circumstances that my parents were going through. Um, so Philadelphia is weird in terms of like it's one of the most segregated cities in America, like big cities in America in terms of where people are located and like the have and have nots. And it's like strictly almost divided on race in Philly. It's not like that all around the country, but you see a really it's very it's just different the way it is in Philadelphia. So with that being said, I grew up in South Philly, a very poor part of South Philly. My mom and dad were both journalists. So uh, as I got older, my parents were making more money, so I kind of moved around, and then I ended up in a place called Chestnut Hill, which is I'd say probably 98% white. And it's probably the most in terms of like not center city or certain sections of downtown. Chestnut Hill is like one of the richest areas in the city. So I had a unique perspective on growing up, um, with certain influences coming from other neighborhoods because I tended to gravitate towards negativity. So while my parents got me out of the quote unquote hood and moved me up to Chestnut Hill, I still found myself engaging in a lot of the negative aspects of society, drug use, criminal behavior in terms of like robbing people and like all types of like bad stuff that you don't want your kids doing. And So let's move along to my 20s. I was addicted to drugs for a few years, and then I ended up getting clean. And that was about 10 years ago. I got clean, and I was 29. So I was 29, and I hadn't finished college, and I didn't have many prospects for my future other than working, retail jobs or McDonald's and stuff. Um, so I take a look at the surrounding landscapes, and all I'm seeing is murder, 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 kill, 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 gang violence, gang influence on the city, on people in the city, and there's like a major, there's a major, I guess you would say, I'm trying to find a right word here. There's a major moral difference between a lot of the hoods and ghettos of the city and the rest of the city and the rest of the working population. And so I guess to answer your second question, when it comes to YouTube, 4 years ago, I was, like I said, I was clean. I was working these jobs that I didn't really like, and I'm looking around me, and there's a lot of murder, but there's not names or faces behind the murder. For example, when you open up a newspaper in Philadelphia on any given day, because we have one of the highest murder rates in the country, and it's a very big issue here. That's why I focus on it so much. I mean, if you're not living in Philadelphia or Chicago or one of these cities that have this problem, you probably don't know what I'm talking about or don't realize
Do
how
you mean,
bad it
just
is.
real quick, do you mean per capita,
Yes,
raw numbers, or both?
per capita. I mean, so for instance, last year Philadelphia had 584 homicides, and we're a city of 1.6 million people. So it's like that's a lot. That's a whole lot. There's some cities that, you know, a murder is unheard of. There's some towns in America where a murder is unheard of, or if it is, it's like the biggest deal in the world. But in Philadelphia, it tends to be a daily, or you know, more than, or 2 or 3 times a day, somebody's getting killed. And in the newspapers, what you'll see is, uh, 18-year-old killed at a gas station, no weapons recovered, no arrests were made, and that's the end. There's no face, there's no name, there's no story. And I kind of felt like that was lacking, like the context was lacking, like what's going on? Why are all these people getting killed? Why is the violence so high in certain neighborhoods? So I kind of wanted to fill that gap in and kind of like put some faces to these stories, put some names to these stories, and put some context to these stories, because a lot of times I feel that black people in America, their deaths are treated as, like, especially if it's due to gang violence, their deaths really aren't, there's not much weight behind it in terms of news coverage, in terms of understanding of it, contextualizing it. I mean, you can open up the USA, you can open up USA Today or New York Times, and sort of, you can read an article that kind of gets into it, but there, I just feel like there's not enough rawness to it, and that's really what I try to deliver on my channel, is the raw reality of what's going on in the hoods and ghettos of Philadelphia.
So I guess to recap then, so even in Chestnut Hill, where you've spent, I don't know if you're still there, but you spent like
I'm
a
not,
lot.
yeah.
You're not.
So
We're
I'd say about 50% of my life was spent in Chestnut Hill.
so it wasn't, even though it was like an affluent neighborhood. Are you saying, like, just given the prevalence of gang related violence, drug use, and murder in Philly, you really weren't isolated from it? Like, it wasn't like an oasis, or there wasn't like a shield, so to speak,
Right.
protecting that particular
Well,
neighborhood, right?
right. So just being, considered an upper class neighborhood, the crime obviously wasn't as prevalent in Chestnut Hill. However, I knew people that would come up to Chestnut Hill specifically to rob people from up there, or to steal, or because they knew people in Chestnut Hill had money. If you lived in Mount Airy or Germantown, which is like the next 2 towns down, if you're heading towards Center City, if you lived in one of those towns, like the further down you go, the, you can literally see uh the poverty rising, like as you head down. It's called Germantown Avenue, which runs basically throughout the whole city, straight down the city. And as you head down Germantown Avenue, yeah, like I said, you see the poverty level rising. So Chestnut wasn't shielded in a sense like it was immune to it, but it definitely was a difference living in Chestnut Hill than living in any other city. But when you, like I said, when you open up the newspaper, you're still reading about Philadelphia and everything that's going on in Philadelphia. And like I said, my mom was a journalist and my dad was a journalist, so it was kind of like second nature for me to be reading the newspaper every day. And these are just some of the things that I noticed and really bothered me about the news coverage in Philadelphia.
Did people in Chestnut Hill who I'm because I presume there were many of them who like that's all they ever knew was Chestnut Hill, that they grew up in it. Did
Yeah.
they share your connection to it, or were you sensitive to and kept tabs on what was going on in the rest of Philadelphia because you were not born and spent your entire life in Chestnut Hill? Or did even your peers who lived in Chestnut Hill their entire life, did they kind of share that too? Like they felt
No,
the
they didn't.
they did not.
No, my peers in Chestnut Hill were worried about, you know, school, playing basketball, hanging out, watching, just regular stuff. They were
Shit
just
shit
this.
that
It was
people
just
should
regular stuff.
actually be worried about at that age, not, you know.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
The fact that your
Yes.
parents were journalists. So I don't know what beats they covered, but were they crime reporters, or like did
No.
they have a particular?
Oh, so all right. So my father in the late '80s was on one of the local news stations. Because I really don't want to out my
No,
identity.
go ahead. No,
But
and
yeah.
and if
So
at
he was
any
on. He
point
was
we
on.
get too close to it, just say like, "Hey, man, if it's cool, let's move on to the next one."
Right. No, I
Yeah,
got you. I got you. I'm pretty used to like navigating or tap dancing
sure,
around this my identity. But
fair.
my father was on one of the local news stations in the late '80s, and he did cover crime, but he covered it more from a news perspective, like the same thing. Like he couldn't get into the details and everything. So, however, but he was very socially aware. My father, like he was part of the Philadelphia Black Journalists Association, which doesn't really mean like inherently that you're more aware, but he just the point I'm trying to make is that he was very aware and conscious of the plights of the Black community in the city, and he was very sympathetic to that, and so that was my father, and then my mom was more of a opinion writer for the Daily News, one of our newspapers here. Um, and she was more of a broad country politics, so she would write about. It's so crazy. Do you remember the website? It was. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the name right now. So forget that point.
Sure.
So my mom, she studied, like I said, like national politics. So this was like around like 2000 to 2010. So she would talk about Bush, Obama, Gore, Kerry, just national things. So my mom was more national. My father was more local, and he was worried about, he was in the weeds with the Philadelphia politics. Um,
So
with that being said, it made me a little bit more aware of like politics and what's going on and what actually like because as a teenager, like most teenagers aren't into politics, especially before YouTube and Facebook and all this. Because I'm going back to before all this because I'm
sure.
I'm in my mid 30s.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm in my mid
I'm
30s. So
31, so even YouTube really didn't hit its advent until like late high school for me, and even then it was more like cat videos than anything else. So like
right,
politics was not
right,
nearly as accessible to people. So yeah, I completely agree.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yes. So that's where my lens was, and then also I faced things that my friends in Chestnut Hill didn't face. So, like I said, I lived in the 98% white city or neighborhood of Chestnut Hill. So I'd be walking home from my friend's house sometimes, literally just walking home, maybe 10 o'clock at night. Not a long walk, 6 blocks maybe, walk from my friend's house. And I can remember on about 8 different occasions, I was stopped by the police and asked, "What am I doing up here? Why am I walking around this late at night?" Like, just at the time, it was kind of like it was scary, but now I'm just looking back at it now. It was just politics as usual in Philadelphia. That's just like it really is the way things were. So I had a sort of always aware of my uh otherness in these communities, especially when it comes to the police. So
Was it a textbook
Mhm.
case? Those instances of what they call, I think they call it walking while black. Is that basically what it was?
Yes, yes, absolutely. That's exactly what it was. Because I mean, as a cop, right? If I'm patrolling Chestnut Hill, and what I'm looking, Chestnut Hill is not like a crime infested neighborhood. So if I'm a cop and I'm patrolling, and I know that, like I said before, that people come from other neighborhoods to attack residents of Chestnut Hill. So I don't find it unreasonable for a cop to stop me and ask me what I'm doing. However, it's just a reality that yes, he is stopping me because I'm black, and he's stopping me because I'm quote unquote in the wrong neighborhood. Um, I have a certain level of understanding because I understand how crime works, how police work, how they, they profile people. But that is also just the nature of the beast of what it is to be in America, like not getting too deep into it, but that's just like what it was expected because my mom would always have these talks about, being very respectful to the police when you're walking and driving around. If you're ever stopped, your interaction needs to be 100% compliant.
Unimpeachable.
Don't
Yeah.
run. Yeah, don't run. Don't, no sudden movements. Don't talk back to the cops. Just unless they're like beating your ass, literally, like comply with them. If they want to search you, let them search you. If they want to, whatever. Because she just didn't want me to get killed. Like that's all. That's where her concern was coming from. Um, so that like very on, I was kind of like primed to feel a certain way about police officers. I wouldn't say that I hate them. I wouldn't say that like I feel like I, have any like animosity towards them. It was just like I was primed to be very aware of their capabilities.
Well,
And
I definitely
Mhm.
want to talk about that because we have the second part of the conversation. It, to me, is the more important part, which is about real world offline issues. And I want to talk to you about, current state of national politics, President Biden's speech, President Trump's legal and political issues, midterms, and what I do want to talk to you about, especially given that the thesis of your channel is talking about the state of violence, particularly in Philadelphia. I do want to talk about that. So if you wouldn't mind, I do want to hold that till the end because I want to end on the more important stuff.
Absolutely,
Let
I'm following your lead.
Perfect. Well, let me ask you with the we all think it's important. You think it's important, but it's comparatively less important than what's happening in the offline world. I want to ask you some stuff about the online situation. Your engagements with Destiny. I assume you've had engagements with Vaush because you defended his much of his propositions, much of his stances to Destiny, which is where I first interacted with you. I was cheering you on the whole time. I was hella impressed, especially because at the time I was very frustrated with aspects of Destiny's advocacy at the time. And of course, talk about Keffals and whatnot. So, your channel, you said you started it about 4 years ago?
No, no, no. I had the idea to start. I started it last year. I had the
Oh,
idea of just ruminated in my head for 4 years.
that was a good
Ruminate
pun.
like that.
I see what you did there. So it percolated for about 3 years. Then last year you started it. Was there like a particularly
Exactly.
triggering event that caused you to finally, initiate this, or did you
Yeah,
just?
yeah. The pandemic, the uptick in murders during the pandemic. I mean, and it was just getting out of control. And I felt like I said, I had to give context on what was going on because to the average reader of a newspaper, like I said, you open it up and there's no context to any of these murders. You just open it up, murder every day after day, murder after murder, and I just felt like that was sorely needed, and it still is. And I plan on continue. YouTube's been giving me a lot of trouble with my channel, but I do plan on continuing that venture.
Do you do? Are you like on any other platform other than obviously Twitter? And you're very active there. You're very effective there. But like on TikTok or Instagram or Twitch or anything like that, or is it just YouTube and Twitter?
Uh, so I have an account on all those platforms you just mentioned. I'm not active on TikTok. I peruse Instagram, but I post very rarely. Twitter is my main source of discourse, and then YouTube is where I present my ideas and everything. But I do want to open up my TikTok a little bit more. I think that's very effective in engaging people, and you can actually grow your audience pretty effectively on on TikTok. But I just haven't done it yet. But I do plan to.
I think that'd be awesome. So I started this project. This isn't about me, but I just for context, I started this project about a year ago as well, and it was very meandering. I was in a position because of the pandemic and because I was working from home to listen to quite a bit of the online Twitch, YouTube debate sphere. I was late to the game on that. A friend of mine introduced me to it, I suppose, during the pandemic. And so while I was working, I was listening to, David Pakman, Brian Tyler Cohen, Destiny, Vaush, etc., and so forth. And then
Same
finally,
here. I listen to the exact same people. Yep.
yeah, and they're awesome, and I'm sure you get this. They each provide something the other one lacks, or the other one doesn't do quite
Yes.
as well. So it's like this beautiful
Yes.
puzzle piece.
They
Um,
all have their
Strengths.
place.
No,
They all have their
100%.
own lanes. Yep.
And I know we're gonna get into this because I would bet my life that we are on the same page on this, but we'll find out. But so I started mine about a year ago, and it was very meandering, and I'm still like I'm constantly like tweaking things and improving things. So like I got a standing desk because I can't stand like sitting down. I do it all the time, but I don't feel as energized or as like it's just something weird about the diaphragm, like stupid stuff like that. I'm
Uh-huh.
constantly tweaking and refining. Have you found that your process or your formula, so to speak, has it changed at all, or is STV Philly in September 2022 the same STV Philly as far as his channel goes in September 2021?
No. So that's a great question. STV Philly, like I said, started out just to add context, but as I produced these videos, I found that it hasn't had the intended effect. For instance, I wanted to reach like the young people, the teenagers, the 12, 13, 14-year olds who were teetering on the edge of, picking a gang or, going the straight and narrow path. I wanted to show them like, well, one, like I said, I wanted to add context to these names and faces, but two, I wanted to show the young guys that they're really that there are consequences to every action you take. It's either going to be death, it's either going to be jail, or you're going to be paralyzed. It's just going to be something negative. These stories never end good, right? So I wanted to kind of like show like I said, the raw reality of living this lifestyle. But what I found is that people used my channel as a source of like instigating, like they thought I was trying to instigate the beefs, or I was trying to like um put myself in the center of all these issues that are going on. And um so I kind of changed directions a little bit. You can see it in my last few videos as to where I wanted to put a broader narrative on gun violence and the attitudes of gang members, or let's just say people in the street, uh, mostly young black men who kind of they. I wanted to add context to why things are the way they are. Why? Because why black men, young black men, a lot of them, I'm not going to generalize anybody here, but a lot of young black men in this city are very, they're drawn to that street life, or to the easy way out, as I call it. That's what I call it, the easy way out, because um, the psychology of young black men in this country is totally fucked. Like it's totally fucked. Like I feel like this generation has been, it's the end result of everything that we saw starting from Ronald Reagan through Bill Clinton through George Bush. Obama didn't really help much with the end product, which is this generation now. The killers are getting younger and younger. The victims are getting younger and younger, and it just seems like there's lack of direction in that area. So I kind of wanted to change the direction of my channel to kind of point out the inconsistencies that um, or the thought inconsistencies, like morally, like because so just for example, just a quick aside. I don't
Sure.
mean to ramble.
No, no, go
I'm
ahead.
really
Go
sorry.
ahead. No, go
Just
ahead.
a quick aside. On Instagram the other day, I was looking at a video of somebody stealing from Walmart or something, one of those stores. Somebody was stealing, and then like in the comment thread, you can read. Oh no, no, no. Here's what it was. Here's what it was. Okay, a guy was outing a girl for stealing from Best Buy. He called her the Best Buy bandit, and he was like, "Watch out for this girl. You know, she steals from Best Buy." It looked like a scorn lover situation where like they broke up or whatever. But the comment section was this didn't like most people just want to know who she was so they can get free shit. Like, oh wait, so the post was to condemn her, but the comments were like, whoa, who is she? Where is she at? Like, I
Got her
want some
number?
free shit.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay.
yeah, exactly. Got her number? What's her number? So it's like I'm looking at this and I'm like, shit, like there's really a moral failing within like a large section of the inner city. And it's not, I'm not going to say it's black people. I would say that it's poverty stricken people and people who just feel like there's no other way to survive in this country other than, cheating, stealing, getting your way by force. Yeah, so there's a big lack of moral foundation there that I kind of like that's the direction I want to head in. I want to really start condemning some of this bad behavior and some of and not really like sitting there neutral like telling the story. I really want to kind of push
So
it in a direction where
so
I'm
that
advocating for the right thing.
that leads me to two questions on this tangent, and the second one might be a stretch, but I think I can explain it if you follow me. But the first question is, Pete, because you said it right there at the end that you didn't want to be some sort of neutral narrator, right? Because there's a moral point to all these stories, and I assume you take the position of if you're just regurgitating facts and not guiding them to desired conclusions, so you wanted to do that. You want to present the story, the facts, but also make a point with them, right? You want to be more
Yes.
of an advocate in your videos than just
Yes.
a
Just
a
then just like
recitation.
just yeah, exactly, because like if you watch some of my earlier videos, I kind of at the end would try to make a point to it, but some of my videos is kind of just like, okay, here's one side of the gang war, here's the other side, here are the people involved, here's what happened, and then there's really nothing else there. But it's like sort of in my later videos I really want to point out how wrong that this behavior is and how we need guidance from parents, from older people in the community, from people who know better, basically. That we need to take a moral stance that this is not acceptable, this is not right, and we're not going to condone it or accept it anymore or make excuses for it, because I see a lot of that too.
That's fair. Okay, well then
See,
that basically answers my second question. So then your process is clearly changing. The last couple of videos different very much, it sounds like, from the initial videos. Your channel, from what I saw,
yes.
is, at least in terms of subscriber counts, pretty damn successful. So I mean, you're doing well. How did you get involved in how I see obviously the connection between socio-political commentary like about gang violence in the inner city, drugs, murders. It's clearly political to one extent or another. How did you get involved or in the orbit of people like Vaush and Destiny and so forth, and Sansol and
Great
everybody like that?
question. Great question. The answer is Destiny. I watched a lot of Destiny, probably since I'd say 2016, when he was doing the JonTron debates and debating all the Nazis and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like he was a very effective advocate for my positions, or positions that I held, and he did a good job of debating, well, morally why these things are crucial to get right. Like, so just the quick answer is through Destiny. Like, he introduced me to all those other people you just named, and
Because
yeah,
if this
that's pretty
happened in
much it.
2016, because again, I came super late to this. I've not seen everybody's content. Like I keep abreast pretty well of and have of Destiny and Vaush for the past 2 years, year and 3/4, something like that. And I've seen a couple of their greatest hits from before then, but like I've heard the name JonTron, but the real significance of that is lost on me. So let me ask you this: as if you've been following him since 2016, that was before Vaush got big and Vaush split off on his own path, right? So were you while you
Bosch
were
was a part of DGG.
right,
Yes.
yeah. So while you were talking or while you were following Destiny and listening to Destiny, did you also basically have a front row seat to, Vaush's trajectory, Vaush's rise?
Yes. Yes. I used to watch when he would debate Destiny as Irish Laddie. He was like frequent. He was like a reoccurring guest on the show. He would always come on. Back then, Vaush is way more extreme than he is now. He was coming from a straight, like almost like straight socialist position, like,
Yeah.
anti-capitalist, American intervention overseas. He was just straight socialist. So that was my introduction to Vaush, and then like you said, he split off and changed his name to Vaush, and
When
yeah,
did you start having dialogue with them? Like, were you just observing them, or were you commenting? Were you
yeah,
in the discords, and then?
no, no, I never, so no, I never was like part of the DGG or VGG or any of that stuff. I just really was just a casual viewer. Um, Anytime a Destiny video popped up on YouTube, I would click it and watch it because it was
Mhm.
always interesting. But as part of like, as far as the community goes, I was never really in the community or involved in the community.
Was the
I was just
conversation
an
I saw
observer.
with you with Destiny about Vosh, was that the first time that you went on his stream to talk to him?
Yes,
Wow, that
yes.
that was
And but
that was
mhm,
awesome,
but
dude. If that was your first time with him, like that was solid.
well, it came from years of watching people interact with them, so I kind of knew like what attitude to come. If I came in hot, if I came in like pointing my finger at them, that wasn't going to go well. But if I came in like really just trying to just get at the points I wanted to make without insult. So I don't. Here's the thing. To answer your question, yes, that was my first interaction, and I know you're gonna have some more follow-up
Hmm.
questions. But with Destiny and his community, you gotta tread carefully. You really do, because I didn't want to face any harassment or anything,
Sure,
that they are known for. Yeah,
sure. No, well,
and and,
listen,
and they did.
you
Yeah.
you really presented yourself like I thought you were a frequent guest that I just missed for like a year, So it was that's. Were
Well,
you on any of
I
these?
appreciate that.
Go ahead. I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead.
No, please go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I appreciate that.
Were you on any of like? Have you been on any like panels like Prime Kai, Dylan,
Hmm.
Fanatic, all
Yeah.
that, or so?
Prime Kai's and Fnatic, and I've had a similar conversation with Vaush. I came in with some criticisms of him. So yeah, I've been on Prime K's panel 3 or 4 times. I've been on Fnatic's panel twice. Had a one-on-one conversation with Vaush once, and a one-on-one conversation with Destiny once. But as far as like interaction with that community, that's it. Um, I'm mostly just a viewer.
I kind of selfishly, I would encourage if you ever find the time or inclination to continue to do that because not that I don't want this to be, I don't always want my channel to be like I had a conversation earlier today with a guy who I broadly agree with. I played the devil's advocate and I told him that I'm like, look, just for the sake of argument for anybody who's not quite on the fence listening or who will watch this, I will play the devil's advocate, but please know this is not what I genuinely believe. I don't want it to be a complete circle jerk, but at the same time, I'm one of those people where I don't take positions just to be contrarian. When I was younger, I would do that and just to do things for the sake of argument. I really don't want to do that now. But that said, from what our few interact, I've seen you on Twitter. I watched the Destiny thing. You and I had the conversation with Sansol and Death of Certainty, and I have found, based on my limited exposure with you, you and I are pretty much on the same page, especially on every issue that's come up. Destiny about Vaush. I'm sure the criticism. If you can, link me to the conversation you had with Vaush because I'd love to listen to it. I haven't heard it. You and I were on the same page for the most part about the Sydney Sweeney thing. So selfishly, because I think not only do you agree with me, I think you advocate for your positions really well. I would encourage you to be as active as you possibly can in this space because I think it's sorely lacking. You don't seem to drama farm, and I have no interest in it. And so which I guess leads to my next question about the general state of online political discourse in Twitch and YouTube. Do you think it has drifted from substantive engagement to more the latest feud with Hassan or the latest like red pill thing or whatever? I'm curious what you think about that. If you think that it's as more or less substantive, and do you have any interest in being more of a presence in that space?
All right. So to answer your first question, I don't I don't feel as though the discourse is being handled properly. I feel like there's a lot of individual feelings involved. There's a lot of um, personal things attached. So lately, my problem with people like Destiny and Vaush are they they will use a personal disagreement with somebody to try to make a political statement when really what you're just trying to get back at, like, it seems like they're not advocating for anything or so with Destiny it's a little bit different because he streams so much that you're going to find things that are like hypocritical or let's say he's not very consistent on certain issues. That's not really my problem. My problem is the way that he engages with certain topics and has a disregard for other people's opinions. I don't know if that answers your question, right? If it doesn't,
No,
could you
no, it,
re-ask
it,
the
it, it
question?
does. I mean, it sounds like you don't think it's okay. More specifically, do you clearly don't think it's as substantive as it could be, and I agree. Do you
Yeah.
think it is
Yes.
less substantive than it was a year ago, 2 years ago, three?
Yeah, because so here's my observation. Obviously they're making a lot of money from YouTube, and so money, success, fame, all that, as much as a person wants to say it doesn't change them, it absolutely changes the way. It might not change your personal convictions, but it changes the way you interact with the world. For instance, Destiny will let anybody on his channel to uh say their piece. If you hit him up on DMs, he'll more than likely, if he doesn't hate you, he'll let you on,
Yeah, I've been
right?
on 4 times. I was
Um,
on earlier today, as a matter of fact. Like, I'll give him major kudos for that. Major kudos. Anyway,
yes,
go ahead.
yes, and it's very I think, and it's an endearing quality to be able to talk with anybody about anything, and it's not like he gatekeeps his channel. This guy, he's 500,000 subscribers, he's got a whole army of followers, but he will engage with little old STV Philly or ruminate. He'll engage and he won't have a problem doing it, and that's great. However, in terms of like his political advocacy, how effective do I think it is? I don't so Destiny claims to be he claims that he's a progressive. He actually thinks he's very progressive. He's super progressive. But when it comes to actual policy positions, he seems more like a moderate or centrist. But that's not a problem really. But just be honest, like you're not a progressive, and the reason, and so I've seen all the interpersonal feuds. Like it's sort of like he wants to do the why I left the left thing, but like doesn't ever do it. He just continues to shit on the left. And that's like my because it's almost like you have to pick a side now. We're at a time in history where you have to pick a side. Like it's not a matter of just like political disagreements, like, oh, you're a conservative and I that's not it, because this country's always been conservative and liberal. But right now, at like we're at with Donald Trump and his supporters and what he's doing to this country and continuing to try to do, um I don't feel that Destiny gives enough weight to how dangerous it is and how engaging with uh, the other side is it's not dangerous, but you have to do it very carefully. You have to do it very um, selectively, and it's not just it's not 2016 anymore, where we don't know what's going to happen. Okay, Donald Trump could become president. That's a big meme. Okay, whatever, whatever. We're at a point now, like 6 years later, where he's tried. As we all know, he's tried to ruin this country. He's tried to take over the government. He's tried to basically subvert democracy to get his way. And
Yeah.
anybody who supports that, I feel like their engagement is like it should not be weighed as, we're just hearing their arguments. They need to be condemned. They need to be like
Well,
fully, like you need to take your position.
Well,
Yes.
well. So
Eh,
to your point, I definitely that's on my list of again offline stuff, along with like the role of law enforcement and whatnot, because it's not only has the left been animated by its complex relationship with law enforcement, now you have the MAGA, what I call Cult 45. I sometimes
mhm.
vacillate if I
That's a
want
good
to.
name for it.
Yeah, sometimes I want to, vacillate between okay, should I be like super formal and respectful? But the truth is, I have very I have conservative family members and friends, as I told you in our conversation with Sansol, whom I love. Their
Mhm.
political opinions mean very little to me. I love them. They are not well educated politically, and so I love them, but I do not respect their political views if they
Of course.
if they are MAGA supporters, and to me
Yeah.
these things are not mutually exclusive. So I do have quite a bit of disdain for Cult 45, and I do want to talk about that as well in the offline segment. As
Okay.
far as Destiny is concerned,
Yes.
so in general, you know, you have concerns about how he engages with certain people and what he spends his time on. Again, not to make it about me, I completely agree. I don't know Destiny that well. He and I have never hung out. I feel like he and I would get along, and I'm sure you two would get along if like grab a beer or
Right.
whatever. It's the same
Oh, for
thing.
sure. For sure. For sure.
But not to sound like a sociopath here, but much of my appreciation for Destiny and my interest in Destiny comes from seeing him. I don't want to say as a tool, but as a person who advocates for a better world, or did advocate for a better world. Like he's, as you said, 500,000 subscribers. He's excellent at what he does. A superb debater, an effective communicator, and he has many qualities that other commentators lack. Like, for example, the willingness to engage with a person, under 50,000 subscribers. Under, my YouTube channel just broke 200. I've got 20,000 on TikTok, but like people at a
Yeah.
vast disparity. He has
Yeah.
endearing qualities. But my frustration with him has been for the last year or so. I think he has, I think his priorities are misaligned. And especially when, as you say, the stakes could not be higher. Like, of all times to have a centrist arc, this isn't it. And to borrow his phrase, this ain't it, Chief. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
not
Right. Right.
now.
Yes.
So I
Not now.
completely agree. And so just to recap then your first conversation with him, can you tell people again, because it's been a year, 6 months, 8 months, something like that. It's been over half a year since you talked with him about Vaush, right?
Yeah. It was probably back in April, I think.
Okay, so just in
Yeah.
a
It was a while
nutshell,
ago.
what was your beef? What was the issue in a nutshell?
Okay. So if I remember correctly, he had a conversation. He did a stream about. Oh, so are you speaking about? Because we had two separate conversations. Are you specifically talking about like the Vosh part,
Oh, you yeah,
or
you
just
you had two different topics in that one conversation, right?
right,
What am I
right, right,
missing?
right?
I remember the Vosh one. What was the second one?
Okay, so well, the first actually the Vosh one was the second one actually. The first one that we talked about was his how he came to the conclusion that this girl was lying about
Oh.
being raped or something by some band member.
Oh,
And
yeah,
my
yeah, yeah,
problem
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, my problem really wasn't with his conclusion. Like I
Yeah.
said, like he ended up being right. But my issue was in that specific instance was like as he was going over the girls stuff, like everything that he called out, it was in my mind was completely plausible. But in his mind, he's like, no, this is how
Right.
I know she's lying because this.
I
But
remember. Yeah.
with yeah. So that was that. But with Vosh specifically, it was more like he was mad that Vosh was saying that you know, political Vosh, so his rhetoric, right, is extreme sometimes. He says things that are a little bit out of bounds, but in context, you kind of get where he's coming from. However, my thing it's not so much what he said, but like, does he have the right to say it, or is he doing stochastic terrorism, which is what Destiny was accusing him of by saying that trans people need to wake up. Like the Republican Party, a lot of it is they're gearing up to make laws to pass laws to make their life so much harder than it already is. And the uptick or the increase in transphobic rhetoric has gotten to a point to now where it's acceptable to call any trans person a groomer online. It's acceptable for the cops to arrest a trans person who's confused about which bathroom to use. It's acceptable for states to pass anti-trans laws, which like there's a whole list of them on Google. All you have to do is just Google anti-trans laws, and there's a literal full list of them. They're really trying to like eradicate trans people or make them detransition or conversion therapy, whatever you want to say.
Right.
So Vaush's rhetoric was basically, listen, the Republican Party is geared up to his words was probably like exterminate you or something like very, very hyperbolic.
Right.
But he was saying to, be ready to defend yourself in case. So it's hard for me to remember his exact words.
Well,
but
so
like the gist of it.
you got the gist of it there, because that's basically what I remember too. That in a nutshell, Destiny had an extreme. I shouldn't say extreme. Destiny had a strong disagreement with Vaush's rhetoric about Republican sentiment towards trans people. Destiny, of course, acknowledges,
even to the point where he he said, "I'll bet you $25,000 that within whatever time frame that
right.
if you can show me 10 trans people that are affected by this, it just seemed like over the top." And so my basic point to Destiny was that we need rhetoric. We need extreme rhetoric. Like, not because it's right or it's what's good. It's because if we didn't have extreme rhetoric on both sides, then we would just be a meandering country that didn't really progress and move forward. Everybody would be okay with the status quo. But that's in normal times. But in these times, especially, like when we're seeing, like I said, all the anti-trans bills and trans people are probably like 0.1% of the population or something. It doesn't matter. They are the most attacked group of people these days, especially online, but in real life too. Like I said, with the bills and stuff being passed, that any advocate for the left this would be a no-brainer. So these are my hangups with Destiny about him saying that he's on the left and his advocacy for things on the left and the way he engages with that. He's obviously a grown man. He could do whatever he wants. I would never come and tell somebody what to do.
Sure.
However,
but you want to nudge him in the direction that you think is not only morally right, but also the most rhetorically efficacious for the morally right position. That's right. What I do with him. I joke that I'm on his ass. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. No. I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, I joke all the time that I'm on his ass. I mean, I don't rant about him or whatnot. I just constantly I'll give you an example. He mentioned, this is gonna be my go-to example for him the next time it comes up. He shared or he retweeted a tweet from this Twitter rando with fewer than 1.5 thousand followers about how it was ableist to tell someone who hates kids that they shouldn't hate kids because that person's particular disabilities made them particularly annoyed and harassed by kids. So like screaming and, the emotional inconsistency, the demands of it. And so it did read super cringe, no doubt about it.
Was he being serious? I remember reading the tweet, and I literally just ignored it because I just thought it was one of those things where he was just, I don't know, being.
Well, what's interesting is he didn't quote tweet it; he just retweeted it, so you don't know. My response to him was, "Hey," and I'm paraphrasing here, but I think it's pretty damn close to being verbatim. It's like, "Hey, as intriguing as the thoughts of this." The cringe thoughts of this Twitter rando with fewer than 1.5 thousand followers are. I wonder if you'd like to weigh in on Jesse Kelly, who is a conservative commentator and syndicated host with 560,000 Twitter followers, who's talking about how only 35-year-old white landowning men should be able to vote. And he posted that the same day that this tweet that Destiny retweeted was. So and it was just like kind of tongue in cheek and whatnot. And I do that fairly often on his page. But
Did he
and
listen
I
to you though?
well, no, he didn't respond. I mean, we've had all of our interactions have been either through Twitter DM, or excuse me, Discord DM, or like the 4 or 5 face-to-face conversations that we've had on the stream. But I constantly spar with his followers on it, but it was kind of like a microcosm, and it kind of to me feeds the theme. So like contextualizing this in the Destiny Vaush thing, this is my take. The reason I still listen to both of them is because, like we talked about at the beginning, the people that you and I listen to, we listen to Brian Tyler Cohen, David Pakman, Vaush, Destiny, etc. And they each have something the other one lacks. There's like this beautiful, they compensate for one another without even realizing it. They're my leftist online Avengers team. They don't even realize it. Destiny's getting on close to being on probation, though. But what Vaush does extremely well, I mean, his hot takes, generally not so good. Like, he's gotten in trouble jumping the gun on a hot take more than once, and he doesn't do it nearly as often, which is great. I think he's learned I probably on some things shouldn't immediately respond. Thank God.
Right.
But
Even if it is your knee-jerk reaction,
sure,
like everybody has them, but being a streamer, you have to be a little bit more responsible with your thoughts and your rhetoric.
100%. Yep. But one thing that he does extremely well is he keeps his eyes on the prize politically. He recognizes that the left and Democrats, for all their flaws, are, as a matter of policy, and I would argue moral positions, and I know you agree, just objectively better than the right. So Vaush doesn't both sides things. And I love it. Yes. I love it.
He's staunchly on the left. He staked his foot on the left, and that's where he is. And he'll call the left out too. I have no problem. You call the left out. There's no problem with that. But
he makes it unambiguously clear that if he's criticizing the left from the left, he's not even implying a false equivalence between the left and right. He'll criticize Democrats and then button it with, they're still far objectively better than Republicans by far, and anyone who disagrees is a fucking idiot. And I love that. Yes. I want to hear that.
Me too.
At the end of every sentence. Destiny, to me, is probably the superior debater, and is certainly, he is much more careful, unless he's pissed, about, I love the fact that he hesitates to comment on breaking news and stuff like that. So to me, they were like the ultimate pair, because one, I would want basically in my beautiful online leftist paradise, I would want Vaush to set the agenda. Destiny, this is what we're going to talk about. This is the goal. We need to find a gazillion creative ways to talk about how the left is better than the right. And then let Destiny take the lead in crafting the arguments accordingly. That's why I still listen to both of them. Does that make sense to you? Yeah. Where are you on that? Do you agree?
So I actually 100% agree. I think you probably put it better than any way I could have, because those are thoughts that go through my head when watching both of them, but I never could succinctly put it together like that. Yes, they if they would work together, I think they would be like an unstoppable force on the left, like unstoppable, literally, like on especially with online discourse, the skills that they both possess, but they can't get over their differences. So it's like now they're pitted against each other. And so here's the thing with Destiny. You know how like on his live streams, they would have like on the thumbnail, it would be a Sprite can covering him.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've ever seen that.
I seem to recall seeing a Sprite can, yes, more than once. Yeah.
Okay. So what that all comes from what I can tell, like I said, I'm not like a DGGer, but what I can tell from that meme is that people say that he acts in spite. Like his total motivation for his thing with Hassan and his thing with Vaush and his thing with like some of the other lefty content creators is spite. And so they took that and they made it like anytime anybody said spite, they would put Sprite in chat, and then that just became a whole meme.
I did not know that. I did not know the significance.
Sprite-stony.
Yeah, interesting.
Yes. Yeah.
Well,
so he's well aware of all these criticisms. He is, and I think he's just like his brain. The way it works is, I ultimately think Destiny is okay with the way things are, and he, as a white man, a wealthy white man, doesn't have a stake in if things really change or not. You know what I mean? Like that, and I'm not reducing him to that, but I'm just saying like just keep that in mind when you look at his like motivations and why he advocates for certain things or doesn't advocate for other things. It's like I just don't think he cares.
So it's interesting. So certainly I agree that his, his relatively high privilege is a, I know he's got Hispanic heritage, but he's, clearly at least white passing. He's very wealthy. He's going to be among the last. I mean, I'm nowhere near as wealthy, but also as a white guy, I will be among the last, to be really affected by, I mean, I'm cis, I'm straight, not bi, don't have kids, all these things. So
Yeah,
will be towards the end of the chopping block as well. And certainly that level of privilege is something to factor in. But what's interesting is I think that his current, I don't want to say indifference, but the centrist arc, I do think is motivated in part, and of course he denies it, but in part by it's an emotional reaction.
yeah,
And of course, when that's been alleged quite often in public, and of course he responds with, "I can defend everything I say," and of course the follow up should be, "That's because you're an extremely skilled debater. Of course, whatever position you take, Destiny could probably sell more people than he probably should on flat Earth theory if he wanted to take that position because he's damn good at what he does." That doesn't
yeah.
mean that
And ultimately, why that doesn't matter is because Hitler can convince you anything about the Jews if you sat down and talked to him. Like he would convince you that everything that he was saying back then is true. Like and he convinced the whole country. Like so, that to me doesn't really matter as
I
much as
agree.
like if you can defend your positions. You know what I mean? But go
I
ahead.
agree. No, no, no. That to me, it's a red herring. It's a non sequitur. It does not. When people say, "Look, you're motivated by emotion," the fact that you can articulate what might very well be a grudge against certain leftist figures, the fact that you can articulate it and rationalize it extremely well is just testament to your ability to communicate and debate, which is exceedingly high. My issue is, what was I going to say? The to me, like it doesn't refute it, and I do want to say a lot of it's understanding. Like people, and we'll get into this. I don't follow the Keffals thing closely, other than again snippets of what I've heard and what I've seen. From what I gather, Destiny has some legitimate reasons to dislike Keffals, and I'm not going to take that away
Okay,
from him.
okay.
And I'm sure that.
Well, so
Go ahead.
when we get into that, I have a few questions about
Sure,
that. But go ahead.
sure.
I don't want to
So,
derail your train
no,
of thought.
so and certainly other online leftists. I don't think this is a completely one-sided situation. I know
No.
Destiny's gotten death threats. I know people have threatened
Hmm.
his family. I know people have made
Hmm.
a litany of personal comments. That'd be really hard to not take personally.
Which is awful and terrible, by the way.
I know, yeah, and I have
Yeah.
no doubt that you feel that way. I feel that way too. But I guess I'm always hoping that, I mean, are you familiar with Some More News, Cody Johnson of
First,
Some
yeah.
More News?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I probably watch every episode. Yes.
They're amazing.
More than familiar. More than familiar.
He
Yes.
has he used to have a great tweet pinned, which was something to the effect of, "The left got a little too PC, so I changed all my policy positions on healthcare, military, foreign affairs, immigration, blah, blah, blah," which is something you basically hear from the disaffected left. You hear it from Tim Pool and Dave Rubin and whatnot. "The left got a little too PC, so I just basically switched sides." I don't think Destiny
Right.
switched sides, but oftentimes, I fear that his very legitimate personal disputes with a lot of online leftist figures and the Twitter left have made him more contrarian than he ever wants to admit. And I have a huge
Yeah.
issue with
So
that because the stakes are too damn high, and it's not a good enough reason for him in his position to give the right more credit than it deserves. Go ahead.
yeah. No. So with that, he'll say, well, no, I'm not a disaffected member on the left. I I I almost exclusively used to argue with people on the left, and I almost exclusively used to run defense for people on the left, like Hassan, like Vaush, like some of the other like big content creators that he has engaged with in the past. And I have seen him in debates with Hassan, like it's them two versus uh two conservatives, and Hassan will come in with the dumbest fucking takes and rhetoric, and Destiny will have to like try to like hold his hand through the argument. I've seen that happen. He'll also say that, then give me somebody on the left that can articulate their ideas well, and that I can argue with, because everything I've been presented with so far is just dumb fuck lefties who don't really know what the fuck they're talking about, and it's very aggravating, right? That's what he'll say.
Oh,
Uh,
sure.
but
And
for
to me,
me,
go ahead.
no. So for me, I would say, well, then how do you square that with having lunch with Nick Fuentes? Because I know for sure you don't agree with anything that comes out of that man's mouth, but yet you hold his hand like a baby. And I can kind of see why he would come to the conclusion that blacks have inferior intelligence, because there's no data disproving that. But IQ is a very complicated thing. All the arguments that he'll go through to like defend Nick, right? But he never extends that same courtesy to people on the left. They're just all dumb fuck lefties who don't know what they're talking about.
He 100% holds them to a higher standard, and it is frustrating to me because, again, at the end of the day, I don't have nearly the same scrutiny that you do, let alone the same scrutiny Destiny does. But I hope that if and when the time ever comes that happens, I would make it my personal mission to not allow the obnoxious behavior of online randos dictate where I focus my politics. I cannot imagine at this stage of my life, and I could be wrong, could be dead wrong, but I don't think I am, that a person on Twitter could ever piss me off so much that I start to cozy up to the right. And because, again, that's how you know that there is an emotional element behind it, because, as you say, he's not a conservative. He is. I know he doesn't agree, and he doesn't agree with Lauren Southern's policy positions or Nick Fuentes' policy positions or blah, 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 so forth. And he'll never vote for a Republican. You know that. We all know that. Which, to your point, makes it more maddening. And that's what, to me, that betrays the fact that this is mostly a sense of, I don't want to say a personal grudge, but it is clearly it's an emotional response that he is able to brilliantly justify through argumentation. But so what about?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, no, I was just gonna say with that, like all that is perfectly understandable, but there's things that Destiny does, and I really don't want to make this all about Destiny,
Sure.
because but just since we're on the topic, there's things that he does that aren't talked about, I think, that are legitimate criticisms, that
Of him or
of him that I don't think he can defend. So you're about to get into Keffals. Let's get into that,
sure.
because
So
here's where I think some of the legitimate criticisms can come
let
from.
me just lay out that all I understand, because, again, so like one thing one thing I want you to understand about me, and I refuse to do it, and it's probably one of the many reasons that, again, other than just the fact that I'm still stumbling through this with, like, I just found out, like, you can put hashtags in your video descriptions, because I was still going based off the keyword thing when you go to upload a video, right, which I understand is basically useless now. Yeah, the tags. So I'm still stumbling through this, but I know that one of the reasons that I'll probably always struggle on my YouTube channel is because I have no interest in what I call drama farming. I don't care about I shouldn't say crazy, but the ex-girlfriend or the ex-fling that Destiny had, or the Stardust and the latest Stardust, or whatever it is. To me, I want to focus on politics, and the only reason that I'll discuss like things like Vaush and Destiny is not because I'm really interested in the personal dispute, but because I feel like it undermines the efficacy of the online left in this space, because it's like the first Avengers movie. Thor and Captain America, or Thor and Iron Man are fighting each other when they should be fighting Loki. You know what I mean? So, like, that's the only reason I give a shit. So as far as Keffals is concerned, I had no idea who Keffals was until the Kiwi Farms thing started to really blow up.
Doxing,
Yeah, and stuff like that. So I know she's a trans person. I know she ratios people very well. I've always wanted a ratio, and
Yeah, 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 yeah.
I love the
Great
fact.
meme, by the way. I don't know why people hate that. That's a great meme.
No, I think it's great. And I love the fact
Yeah.
that she's unapologetically hard hitting. She is a ball buster. She goes sometimes, like I know she and I did hear that she and Hunter. I saw a bit of this, like not Hunter Biden, Hunter Avalone. Like she'll admit that she is a very temperamental person. That she's a very, she's prone to like have intense reactions to things when she's pissed. Of course, she's not alone there. But that aside, I love the fact that like she is like a homing missile on this Kiwi Farms thing, and I love that. I
Yeah.
love that energy. As far as she and Destiny,
So does everybody else. Yeah.
yeah, well, clearly not. Clearly not everybody else. Yeah,
Not everybody. But
yeah.
everybody. People who love her, that's why they love her. That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
Right. So I like that. And but as far as the dispute there was concerned, I want to make sure I understand this correctly. Was it because she wasn't a DGGer, right? Actually, you know what?
No.
I might not understand this entirely. I just know that they've clashed with one another, and he said some pretty harsh things about her. She said some harsh things about him, and I think he had a presence, or he may have had a presence on the forum that she is now targeting because they doxed her and they've issued death threats and whatnot. So if you want to clear it up for me, go ahead.
Okay. So I'm almost in the same position as you. I hadn't really heard of Keffals. I don't watch her. I don't follow her. I follow her on Twitter, but I don't like watch her
Same.
videos or anything.
Yeah.
From what I can understand, her and Destiny, Destiny last year had this whole thing with a person named Doe who
The deer
who wants
thing.
their pronoun. Yes, who wants their pronouns to be it. Destiny has a huge problem with the xeno pronoun, whatever you call it. I'm not even sure.
Xeno pronouns, I think it is, or neo pronouns, or something like that. Yeah,
yes,
one of the two.
He has a big problem with having to address people by their neo pronouns, right? Whatever they decided to be. I never really got into that whole discourse. I really don't give a fuck. I don't know many non-binary trans people in real life, so like it never really like affected me to the point where like I was invested one way or the other. But I did see his interaction with Doe, and a lot of people had a problem with the way he interacted with Doe's suicide attempt, right?
Right.
He mocked her.
I remember
Doe,
that situation. Is that where Keffals got involved?
Well, so Doe is a friend of Keffals, so I think that's where the
I see.
The beef kind of initiated, right?
Mhm.
But they didn't have any personal one-on-one interactions until earlier this year. I think, from what I understand, please do not quote me on this, but from what I understand, Keffals was having a stream. Destiny was doing he was streaming and doing one of the things like he often does. He'll drop in on somebody else's stream, comment, whatever.
Yeah.
And I think that happened. I think he like dropped in on her stream and was watching what she was saying, and probably disagreeing with it. I don't know. I didn't see. But from what Keffel says is that he hate rated her on that night. Now, people like Soul and people in DGG will say, no, he did not hate rate her. There's no proof of that. And Destiny will say this as well. But Keffels is convinced that he did, for one reason or the other. She says like you can look at the spike in viewers she got when he was watching her stream, and then you can look at she has like a couple like saved comments from DDGs in her comment, whatever happened. That's the genesis of their beef, was Doe and then that situation.
Well, okay.
So I
go
think
ahead.
unrelated to that, very shortly afterwards, Destiny got banned from Twitch. Unrelated to the thing with Keffels.
I see.
But
that's where the
Keffels fucked
timeline
up.
is. Okay.
Yeah. So where Keffels fucked up is she stepped in and said, "Ha, Steven, I got you banned from Twitch. I now took $10,000 a month away from your, salary or whatever." And then quickly like put in like, by the way, I'm just kidding. I had nothing to do with this ban. But nobody remembers that part. Everybody knows that she took credit for getting him banned from DGG.
Sure.
From what I understand, from that is where her Kiwi Farms thread was created, was because she took credit for getting Destiny banned. Because on Kiwi Farms, their whole thing is lolcows, undesirable people on the internet that they unapologetically make fun of harass, whatever. So if you get a thread of you started on Kiwi Farms, that is not a good thing. That
Yeah.
is not a good thing.
I was
So that
unfamiliar
happened.
with Kiwi Farms until this whole situation, or like its significance, but I understand my understanding is that is a far right forum, yeah,
Yeah, whatever you want to call it.
message board,
It's just a cesspool of hate. I think is the best
a
way to
nexus of
describe it.
rage. Yeah.
Yeah, no, really though. Like if you've ever, if you can still go, it's still up, even though they say it got taken
Yeah,
down. It's
it
just
switched
under a different URL.
providers. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, you can still go and just quick glance. It's nothing but hate on there. It's nothing but just whatever words that you don't want to hear on a daily basis, or whatever like whatever nasty hatreds towards people that you don't want to see online. That's where you go to find it, right? Same with like 4chan and 8chan and
So
the Daily Stormer and all those
this
places. Yeah,
provides kind of
but
an interesting segue then, I guess, into the next topic, and we'll just close the door on the Destiny Vaush online commentary thing specifically. I want to give my opinion, and then I'll turn it over to you, and then we'll move on to the next thing. I want to see the talented, successful political commentators online, people like Vaush, people like Destiny, even. And this is selfishly, but I think it actually, no, I'm not going to say selfishly, because I do think it would be better for the country as a whole. I would prefer that they focus more on politics, discussing, offering political commentary, having political discussions, political engagement, especially midterms being 2 months away. The stakes are incredibly high, and we'll get into all that here in just a few. I want to see them keep their eyes on the prize. I will continue to do my part, either through Twitter and through DMs and the few engagements I'm able to have, and I feel like I've had some success, at least in conversation with him. And they haven't been debates; they've been very nice conversations. Where he'll say something about, the right and the left are equally anti-democratic, and then it's like, okay, come on, buddy, we both know that's not true. Well, the Electoral College, that would make things more anti-democratic, or excuse me, more democratic, abolishing the Electoral College, whereas the right wants to do this, and deny election and stuff like that. And then he'll go, okay, fine, fair enough. So I'll continue to nudge him there, because I think he is a man of incredible talents. I think he's got a great platform, and I don't think he's a bad guy. I think that he's just lost his focus, and I'd like it to see it return. So that's my take on that. And I think Vaush still has that focus.
It depends on what you think his focus. Right now, I think his focus is on growth of his channel. So all the political arguments kind of go out the window then.
Sure, but I think if it should be, I think he lost the focus I'd prefer that he has. And hopefully he'll get back more into that. So what are your final thoughts on Destiny, Vaush, the state of that particular sphere? And then I want to ask you about Kiwi Farms, deplatforming, and platforming, and then we're going to move to the offline stuff.
Okay, so the final thing I'll say about that is Destiny. He has the platform he has. He uses it the way he uses it. We can engage with it the way we want. We do, but I just want to kind of remind you that it really, as far as I appreciate your advocacy and talking to him and trying to nudge him in a certain direction, which I probably will continue to do as well. And like you said, you appreciate me doing that. I appreciate you doing that as well. Because it is needed. He does need people kind of holding his feet to the fire, because like you said, he is a very, very integral part of the online political discourse. And as far as him and Vaush's relationship, I don't think it's mendable at this point. I wish it was, but you got two big egos who just aren't willing to reconcile, and that's fine, because Vaush is staunchly on the left, and I don't think that's ever going to change. So my thing is with Destiny, if he wants the left to win and prevail, and he wants a better future for the country and his kids, he's got to stake his ground, and he can't keep this waffling, play both sides type thing. Both sides are bad, and both sides have their good quality and bad quality. They're not equally weighted. I think me and you both agree on that. And yes, we both had the same wish that he would head in a different direction. I'm not holding my breath for it, but
we got to keep doing the work, baby. We got to keep
yes, absolutely.
No.
no, yeah, keep trying to nudge, nudge,
Yeah.
nudge, nudge, and just like the same thing happened a few years ago, people were warning him like the left is they're gonna backbite you, they're gonna destroy you, they're gonna, this isn't gonna end well for you. You keep, running defense for the left. This is what the centrists and the people on the right would
Hmm.
tell him that were in his community, and now like as we're here 4 or 5 years later, and he's going through the same thing, just with the right, you know.
Well, let me ask
He's
you
running
about.
defense for them. He's defending them, and they're going to end up just tossing them to the side.
Well, let me ask
But
you
go ahead.
about since we talked about Keffals and Kiwi Farms, we both, and I mean, I'm getting the vibe. I think we're on the same page here. I'm a-okay. I'm in fact, as a matter of fact, enthusiastic about Kiwi Farms being deplatformed, and so I want to ask you about what's your take on that specific. Well, actually, let's broaden it a little bit because we could be here on this tangent for like an hour. Let's broaden it a little bit. We've had a spate of back-to-back cancellations or deplatforming. You've got Andrew Tate. You've
Mm-hmm.
got Kiwi Farms. Of course, the big one that still lingers for a lot of conservatives is President Trump was kicked off Twitter in 2021 and then Facebook. I think was Steven Crowder kicked off for a minute on Twitter, maybe temporarily banned, something like that. But there have been a spate of back-to-back deplatformings. So I'd like
Yeah.
to know, what are your take on the idea of what are your take on what is your take on the idea of deplatforming as a tool or not, and these specific instances? And are there any instances, if you do support deplatforming, where you think it's been misused? So I'd like your thoughts on that.
So with deplatforming, I've seen on Instagram especially, um, Instagram is very strict with their rules, and I've seen people. It doesn't matter if you're left or right. If you go against the rules, if you post a titty by accident or whatever, they're gonna ban your account. They're at least gonna suspend it. That's Instagram. Now, when it comes to Twitter, the argument is, um, Twitter should be a public utility. This is the public square. This is where everybody gathers to, spout their ideas. But the reality of the situation is, I think 13% of the country is on Twitter or something like that. Like Twitter, like in the um, overall context of America, is not the public square. It is not the most important place. I think so. Basically, my idea is, I mean, and it's the same argument that you've probably heard before, but these are private companies. They set their terms of service, right? It's their house. You obey the rules or you don't. Now, you can broaden out to that and say, well, they have an ideology which is misaligned with people on the right, and they treat the right harsher. Well, is it that they treat the right harsher, or is it that the right like wants to bend the rules and break the rules more? Now, people will counter that with saying, well, no, I see people on the left sending death threats, or saying kill the rich, or there's actually some people like further left who are actually really saying some horrible shit on Twitter, and they don't get banned. So I do see the discrepancy in the way they treat the right and the left. I will not deny that. um this is Twitter I'm talking about.
Right.
um so it depends on what platform you're talking about. Now, with Andrew Tate specifically, that situation was unique because everybody banned him at once, and he really didn't violate TOS per se. You know what I mean? Like there's nothing that he did specifically that violates TOS. Now, what it's kind of hard with Tate, because on one hand, it's like, yes, he was just saying his opinion, but like if there's videos of him, you can see him denying the election, being anti-vax. Okay, yeah, he's misogynistic. He says, his thing is about women, but that's not, unless he like literally threatens a specific woman. I don't think that's breaking terms of service. But he did kind of break terms of service when he started the election denial and the anti-vax stuff, or specifically with some of the things he was saying. So
Let me push
it's
back
like,
for just a second, though. I am going to play the devil's
yep,
advocate here.
sure,
I too constantly cite the. I'll tell you why I do it, because it's funny. I too will cite the, hey, it's just a business and they have the right to, withdraw service or refuse business to, a particular client. And I love that argument because, number one, it's true. Legally speaking, it is true, clearly. And Twitter is not, Twitter nor Facebook nor Instagram are, breaking the law when somebody, breaches the anti-titty Instagram rule or, whatever. They are exercising their legal discretion as a business. It's true.
Right.
But the bigger reason why I cite that is because I love hoisting the right with their own petard. I love it. It makes me happy. Because for decades, as you well know, the right, which side of the aisle was the one advocating for the position? Companies should be able to do whatever they want. Free market, baby. It's America. We shouldn't have employee protections. At-will employment. Let companies get as big as they want. Competition will either manifest or it won't. The government shouldn't step in. And now they're feeling the other end of that. And I think it's hilarious. I think it's great. And I'm cool with just kind of twisting that until the point's made. Okay?
Yeah. Yes. And to use one of the words you used a lot in the last debate, there is a lot of schadenfreude there. There is a lot of just enjoying seeing your opponents, suffer, But beyond that,
Well,
listen,
let me get to the devil's advocate part.
I didn't let you finish your point.
Well, no, I'm sorry. So let me get to the devil's advocate part. But somebody will say, okay, ruminate, Philly. Listen, I understand. I accept that they have the legal right to do what they do. And you know what? To hell with it. I also accept that I, on the right, and again, I'm playing the devil's advocate, that my side of the aisle has contributed to this for decades, and now we're feeling the sting, and we don't like it. Fair enough. But you clearly, if the shoe was on the other foot, and Twitter and Facebook and these social media companies had terms of service or rules where what if they had a terms of service that was just like, we just want to kick lefties off? You all would hate that. You on the left would be pissed, even if it was legal. So what's your moral justification? Why is it okay to crack down on and deplatform and ban misogynists and racists and xenophobes and transphobes and election deniers? Because those things are not illegal. It's legal to be a racist, a transphobe, an election denier, yada, yada. So why is it okay? Why are you morally okay with those people, suffering the consequences, but you wouldn't be okay with, the shoe being on the other foot? And don't hide behind it's legal. I accept that. Why is it morally okay? That's me playing the devil's advocate. What do you think?
Right. Well, it's morally okay because as a country, I think we've kind of decided that socially being racist explicitly, let's just say using racist language. Let's not say being racist because you can't get in somebody's head. But using racist language, we've decided as a country is not something that we will readily accept. So if a private business, like I'm really not trying to use the legal argument, but I'm just kind of couching it with the fact that us as a country have let's put it this way. If I go into Walgreens, right, without my shirt on constantly, and Walgreens specifically has a policy of you can't go in there without your shirt on, I'm not breaking the law by not having my shirt on, but I am breaking Walgreens rules. And if I get banned from one Walgreens, guess what? They can ban me from every Walgreens nationwide, like any state, anywhere I go into. They have technology with facial recognition where they can ban you from any Walgreens. Now, your argument to me is that they don't have the right to do that. And you would have to tell me why they don't have the right to do that.
Yeah, so for
whatever the policy may be.
Right. So
like,
for
are they anti my chest? Like what? I can't show my chest anymore. Isn't this America?
Well, wouldn't that
violate? To walk around with my shirt off?
Wouldn't that violate the anti-titty Instagram rule that you mentioned? I just love how you phrased that like 10 minutes ago. It made me laugh. But to your point, okay. So this is how I look at it. I was playing the devil's advocate. Then I'm taking the devil's advocate hat off because I struggled with this for a while. Again, just it's not about me, but just a quick aside. I went through a phase after President Trump was elected in 2017. I went through kind of a right-wing contrarian phase. I didn't vote for
Right.
Trump. I voted for President
Hmm.
Obama in 2012 and then Secretary Clinton in 2016. And especially Secretary Clinton against... Uh-oh. One of
Oh,
my
the
lights
lights went
died.
out.
Hang on 1 second.
It's
Let me
okay.
just do
I
one
can still
thing.
see you.
Yeah, well, hang
Yep.
on. But
Yep.
yeah, I'm trying to make this shit look as
Do
good
your
as
thing.
possible. Hold that thought. Hang on 1 second.
Yep.
You can take a pee break. So sorry about the abrupt stop there, courtesy of technical difficulties, but this does seem to be like a good place to end the first half of this discussion. In the second half, you're going to hear STV Philly's thoughts about much bigger and more consequential issues than online drama. Things like the upcoming 2022 midterms, President Biden's dark Brandon arc, the current state of the GOP, and looming threats to American democracy. So stay tuned because you will not want to miss this. Hey you! Yeah, you! Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, and I hope that you did, please be sure to hit the like and subscribe. Also, my link tree is in the description below, so if you have a sec, go ahead and share the love on all my social media accounts. Also, if you want to express an opinion, eternal devotion, or undying contempt, go ahead and leave a comment because we're always looking for feedback. And on that note, I look forward to pondering politics and pop culture again with you very soon.